All right, so we've got the record on, so we should be able to distribute this after, but thanks everybody. Here we are again, another pilot review. Thanks for joining in. We're broadcasting from our Volvo Trucks Customer Center in New River Valley, Virginia. Most of you know me, but for those that don't, I'm Chris Kovac. I'm the National Account Manager for Amazon. And I'd like to introduce some of the subject matter experts that are here to assist. We have Brett Pope, Director of Electric Vehicles. Some of you may know him. John Moore, Senior Product Manager of Electric Vehicles. And Chris Stadler, he's the VNR Product Marketing Manager. We'll kind of trade off through the program with each person's area of expertise. So, hey, thanks for coming again. We're excited to showcase the most advanced truck Volvo offers in North America, the Volvo VNR Electric. This truck represents the next phase of the Amazon and Volvo relationship, launched in 2018 with the purchase of diesel tractors. Since then, we built a relationship and evolved with a truck spec that moves towards fulfilling Amazon's climate initiatives and provides a safe environment for drivers and those around, and lastly, focuses on quality to keep you up and running. In a nutshell, those factors are embodied by Volvo's core values, and we align here: safety, quality, and environmental care.
And so this truck represents our first generation electric truck, and we offer it as part of the Volvo Lights project together with Amazon. So Lights stands for the Low Impact Heavy Transport Solution, and is part of the California Climate Investments, which is a statewide initiative that puts billions of dollars of cap and trade dollars to work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, strengthens the economy, and improves the public health and environment, and in particular focused on disadvantaged communities. The total Lights program is a $90 million project, and the funding awarded was $44.8 million, with the rest being investments from Volvo and its partners. And so during the period of the project, the Lights trucks will directly facilitate a significant emissions reduction in the oxides of nitrogen, reactive organic gases, and particulate matter, and somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5 tons per year of reduction through the 15 trucks that we're running. But more importantly, the Lights projects allows us to gain that experience with our customer partners to understand what it takes to create that end-to-end electromobility solution.
Here. Good? Okay. So again, I think we put together a good program for everybody. As always, wish everybody could be here in person to have the hands-on experience with the VNR Electric. But we'll do our best to capture the spirit of live pilot reviews, similar to what we did with the CNG in this virtual environment. Our goal is to highlight the alignment of what you purchased previously with the diesel and CNG, and how we moved into an electric backbone for what could be a similar by appearance truck. We want to allow time for questions and answers to the end, and capture anything we missed or questions you may have about the product. So we reserved time for a specification read through, which you're familiar with the format if you were on the CNG pilot, and we'll visually highlight the components of the truck as we walk around and discuss them. We'll move around the truck in sections just like we did before. And we sent a copy of what we'll have in our hands so you can follow along as well. I'd like to have all attendees muted, and please post your questions to the chat. We'll have people monitoring the chat windows to harvest the questions and assist with responses as we go. If you're not able to access the chat window, you've called in or dialed in, you can text your questions to 336-501-5858, and that should be one of the first posts in the chat window. So it's in the, yeah, got a thumbs up, it's in there. So I'll say it again for those that can't see that: 336-501-5858. And if you can, send your question and your name, and we answer questions in a few ways. First, we'll pause at the end of each section to field pertinent questions to that section. Second is kind of general questions that maybe don't fit where we're at, or or have come in later than a particular section we were at, so we don't have the visual cues, we'll park those and answer those at the end of the program. We can circle back to the truck in that particular area of the truck. The third portion, maybe stumpers, and we can't phone a friend or get any further information, answer the questions. We'll get those back to you in an email post-program. But hopefully with the subject matter experts we have on hand, we'll be able to answer most, if not all, your questions. So we thank you for taking time to attend the virtual pilot, and let's get started. So let me put this phone in my pocket. So very similar in appearance. This is a VNR cab. This is actually a VNRe model. The model designation is VNRe 62T300. Again, this is the model that was used for the diesel tractors in VNR, and of course it's a battery electric vehicle for this particular application. 300 is the cab designation of a day cab. Vehicle's rated for 66,000 pounds gross combination weight, and it's certified for greenhouse gas regulations. Give you a few dimensions, a little bit dry, so but I'll read them as we go. Won't go over them quickly. Want you to get them as well. So 113-inch bumper to back of cab. That's the measurement from the front of the bumper to the back of the cab panel. It's a 51-inch bumper to front axle, measurement of the front bumper to the center of the front axle. It's a 219-inch wheelbase with an overall length of just over 303 inches. The overall height is 156 inches. That will be with the roof fairing deployed. We have it down for transport. We're going to flatbed these trucks to California, where you'll be using them once the program is over. So we have left the top air shield down. And the fifth wheel height's 47 inches, which is consistent with the other products you bought, CNG and diesel. And we added the distance from the charging port to the front bumper is 86 inches on the driver's side. So consistent with the diesel and CNG product, same cab. It's a high strength steel cab, and as you know, that forms the basis of our safety platform. We're the only North American manufacturer to use a high strength steel cab, high strength steel for the entire cab construction. The color is the common color for the Lights project, very distinctive. Lights electric green metallic. Frame rails are black. Front grille is easily replaceable, and it will be changed out for the a painted body color grille when it gets to California. It wasn't ready in time for the project, so when it gets to California, we'll swap the grille out and prove how easily replaceable it is. The LED headlamps, they're LED, and they have the signature daytime running light, and that's consistent with all the other products you purchased. And because they're LED, they don't generate the heat of an incandescent, but there's fans inside to circulate air, so it reduces the chance that the lights would freeze up in cold temperatures. Not freeze over and obscure the power of the lights. Dual hood mounted mirrors that are breakaway, consistent with the other products you purchased, and they're heated because the side mirrors are heated. That brings the heating capacity into the hood mirrors. Got to mention the large panoramic windshield. It's got a couple functions. It's roped in, which allows it to be kicked out. And if there's an accident and the driver needs an egress point from the truck. Secondly, a roped-in windshield is easier to replace. It takes less time, and it's less expensive. The exterior sun visor has clear LED marker lamps, and all the lights on the trucks are LED. Again, I mentioned the roof fairing. It's a full roof fairing. It's in the stored position at this point. We'll deploy it when we get to California. Cab air horns are mounted under the cab. Truck's equipped with Volvo's stability platform, Volvo Enhanced Stability Technology. We call it BEST. It's been standard on a Volvo truck since 2005. It's now federally mandated to be on all vehicles, all Class A vehicles. It's got 6-channel traction control, which is consistent with the orders we're doing on CNG going forward. And it's equipped with the collision mitigation system of Volvo Active Driver Assist. VADA is what we call it. Components of that system, there's a front mounted radar that picks up metallic objects in front of the truck. And those metallic objects are further validated by the camera that's mounted high in the windshield. The camera also serves as it's what's used for the lane departure warning system. So it's going to read the left, and write lane markers on the road and give the driver audible and visual indicators as to where they've come close or crossed over those left or right lines. The volume level for the systems is adjustable, but it's set to factory at low. This is the same steel bumper that's on the diesel product. It's got flexible end caps that can be replaced, and it's got an air dam in the front to direct air underneath the chassis for better aerodynamics. There's a bumper reinforcement back there to support the front radar, license plate holder consistent with the other products, and there's two front towing devices. They plug in here and here, and they're mounted in the same place as the diesel and CNG product in the back cab panel. One thing new, and by the way, I forgot to mention, I put X's in the right-hand column beside all the componentry. If there's an X there, that indicates there's a difference in some way, shape, or form and between either the diesel, CNG product, or both. And one of those is the fog lights on this product. Of course, as I mentioned, they're LED and they're clear. So at this point, we're going to go under the hood, and my subject matter expert, John Moore, is going to take over.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go ahead and raise the hood up and do it in the front, or you can do it from the side. How hard is that? Not very hard at all. Okay, one of the biggest differences you're going to notice right off the bat with electric vehicles versus diesel or natural gas is going to be when you open the hood. And when you open the hood on this vehicle, we have a modular power box, which is right in the center, instead of the diesel engine or natural gas engine. We call it the MPB. The modular power box has junction boxes for high voltage. This is traction voltage indicated by the warning here and the orange cables. It also contains quite a few vehicle ECUs, different types of power ECUs to maintain power throughout. We also have accessories. You'll notice we have the 24-volt AC compressors, two of those on top. So these are two electric accessories. Also, in the back of the MPV, right in the front of the bulkhead, we actually have the power steering motor, electric power steering pump. So that's in the back, very easy to get to when you pull out the center panel at the bottom, the doghouse, let's say. So looking inside, notice first on your list you have the frame rails. These are the 11.81 by 3.54 web by 0.31 thick frame rails, and they are splayed or flared, as we call it. So being flared, these frame rails actually come bow out towards the wheels on both sides to create a bigger opening in the center. So if we do have a frontal impact, the MPB will actually move forward and below the driver compartment for more safety for the driver. So these have been tested to do that. Also, when you look on your list, we see a one-stage air cleaner cabin air filter, which is located right here. So this actually filters all the air going into the cab for the drivers. Along with that, we have the radiator up front, which is generally in the same place that we would have a diesel or natural gas radiator, but it's more narrow. And we have 4 electric fans mounted on this radiator. Notice the extended life coolant. The extended life coolant is part of the passive cooling package. So there are quite a few components on this vehicle that warm up. And we want to keep them cool, especially if ambient temperature rises. So we pass this coolant through pumps mounted on the front of the MPV, and it passes through the motors, through the transmission, and more importantly, through the energy storage system. So this is the extended life coolant that goes through those. Also, the accessory drives, the AC pumps and the power steering pump we talked about, has to be powered by a 24-volt system. So let's take a look at the 24-volt batteries. So mounted right under the passenger door, we have 2 12-volt batteries mounted in series, which gives us 24 volts. These 24 volts are feeding power to the AC compressors as well as the power steering pump and some of the ECUs on the MPB. Now, on top of the 24-volt batteries, we have a device that actually steps the voltage down for the cab. And this will step the voltage from 24 volts down to 12 volts, which feeds all the cab power as well as the lighting circuits throughout the vehicle. So really, with the VNR Electric, you're looking at 3 different levels of power. We have the 24 volts, you have the 12 volts, and more importantly than anything is this guy right here. This is the energy storage system. Now this is 600 volts, and this is what we're actually charging when we hook the charger unit in that we'll talk about a little bit later. But this unit actually supplies voltage to the 24 volt batteries when they become a little lower. So they're tied in together and they feed in. So, but let's talk a little bit more about the energy storage system. We have 4 lithium ion NMC batteries. Each one is capable of about 66 kilowatt hours of storage. So if you multiply the 66 times 4, we're looking at a total capacity of about 264 kilowatt hours. Now, this is the lifeblood of the truck. This is the fuel system. So notice on your diesels, you have diesel tanks. On natural gas vehicles, we have natural gas tanks. Well, here we have our batteries. Now, the batteries, each one weighs around 1,100 to 1,200 pounds apiece. So we have to make sure the weight distribution is correct on the vehicle to compensate for those batteries. Also, because the batteries are so important, we have a cage design around the batteries that has been tested to withstand impacts of up to 35 miles per hour straight in with a vehicle, or side impacts have been tested also. So quite a bit of effort has went in to make sure these batteries stay safe. Brett will take it over to you now.
Now, try again.
Try again. How now? Is that better? Yep. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Sorry about that. So what we have here is 2 electric motors, motor 1, motor 2, and we tie this to a 2-speed transmission. And the reason we have 2 speeds is it allows us to have the startability or the launch capability for when you have the heavy loads. And then about 20, 25 miles an hour, it shifts into second gear. So these electric motors will provide 340 kilowatts of power, 455 horsepower. Tail shaft of the transmission, you have 4,051 pound-feet of torque coming from it. And then we also have regenerative power. So using the speed differential between the wheels to the motors, when you let off the accelerator, will also provide creation of energy through the motors back into the batteries. So that's how we can recoup 5 to 20% energy. The vehicle will also have hill start assist. So it'll function very similar to what your diesel product is. So if you're on an incline, you release the brake, it'll maintain your position until you accelerate forward.
You're having trouble hearing me?
Okay. And well, I'm going to send it back over to the truck for the rest of the discussion.
All right, so everybody can hear me? Let me jump back in the truck. So a couple things. That was a lot of information and a lot of new information. We had an earlier question. I'll apologize. I blew right through my first section and didn't pause for questions. So one of the questions was, what is a roped-in windshield? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's not a misnomer or anything. There's actually, when they install the windshield, they put a solution around the truck cab to make it slick, and they pop the windshield in. I think it's about a 1-2 person job. put it in a suction cup, slide it in, and then when it pops into place, yeah, they pull a rope, and it's basically an O-ring seal that goes out around the entire windshield and locks it into place. So, do we have any other questions that have come up to this point?
Yes, Chris, there was two other questions. One is in regards to the steps going into the cab. His question is there a quote unquote wall at the back of the top step? It said as it appears with the reflection, but confirming an individual's foot would not go beyond the step.
A wall. There's a guard here, yes, for the, I think that's kind of what we're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
At the top of the step, right here. And that's steel, and it's contoured to prevent that.
Hey, it's Mike. Just to follow up on that. So yes, thank you. Guard's a better word. I appreciate it. So with that being said, since it's not fully enclosed, any sort of liquid or fluid in there, any risk since it's not a full cover?
No.
No, in general, this is like any other product.
I can't hear the other gentleman.
Mike, this is Sam from Amazon. With that guard step there, I mean, are you thinking from a yard safety perspective, you'd want the guard a little higher just for personal safety? Or is your focus more on the wiring that's shown there, or is it both?
It's actually, that's a great call out. So initially, you know, maybe an associate how they step, or, you know, maybe if they just have a larger foot, that their foot will go beyond the crease. So that could just cause additional hazards, plus, you know, any sort of variance training, which I doubt we would build it in for any steps. So glad to see it's there, but that's a good call out, Sam, is it doesn't look very high. How high is that from top of step to top of guard, shall we say? And then Sam, to your point, the last thing was just additionally, like any moisture, rainwater that will get in there, or if it's just an open, you know, open compartment that wouldn't rust or anything like that.
So from a standpoint of intrusion of water or anything, I mean, you know, a small wall there, probably, you know, it's behind basically it's sealed. The connections are sealed. They have anti-corrosive material on it, so there's not a danger there. Most diesel trucks would have a single step here, so this is a double width step, so it's allowing more room for feet. And you know, the guard there, they'd have to pretty well overstep. I'd say, I don't know, what do you guys, about a size 14 maybe? No, but in that, so you've got a 10-inch step with a guard beyond there. You know, and on the CNGs and diesels, it's typically one of these, one of those there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look very high. So just a little, shall we say, nervous if the associates in a rush, shall we say, and just kind of, we'll say, run up the step. We've seen incidents going up and down steps, but like I said, I'm a couple hundred miles away, so I can't really tell, you know, how the foot is going up. So maybe as we get into the demonstration a little further, maybe we could just zoom in on yourself or another gentleman just walking up the steps. I just want to confirm that there is nothing to be concerned about beyond what you are.
Let's park that and we can revisit at the end.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep, sure. And maybe you'll formulate some questions on the battery electric drive line and the batteries as well and things of that nature. So we can, again, revisit those at the end, and I'll try to be more mindful of stopping at each section. So back to truck stuff or the comparison between the CNGs and diesels. There's a passenger down view mirror consistent with a diesel and CNG product. The front axle is a little bit heavier to accommodate the weight of the batteries. It's a 14,000 pound front axle with a 13.2 front spring. It's 59-inch parabolic taper leaf spring, same as diesel and CNG. Lubricated front spring pins and bushings, so there's lube points on there. That's a little bit different. And the Shepherd HD94 is just a different brand of steering gear with the battery electric truck. The front brakes are disc and they meet the federal stopping requirements. So we have now gone to disc brakes for future CNG builds. So that's consistent with CNG's builds going forward. Brake diameter is 430 millimeters and the lining material is a T7070. The front axle hubs are aluminum and it has an SKF visible cap, again, consistent with the last group of CNG builds, and there's synthetic front lube in there. Michelin X-Line tires are a low pro 22.5. They're H rated. That brings the tire rating up to accommodate the increased capacity of the front axle and springs. Meets greenhouse gas regulations for the rolling resistance. And these wheels are pretty cool. They're solid. They are AccuRide wheels. Of course, they're aluminum and 22 by 8.25. Tire inflation valve is standard. And let's see, kind of move past a little bit. So we'll go to the back. We kind of tackled all this area in here all in one swath. So we tackled the accessory batteries and the propulsion batteries. We have dual rubber quarter fenders, consistent with what is on the diesel and the CNG product as well. And driveline, you can't see it, but it's a Meritor RPL 25 HD. And it's permalube, so it's lube for life. Anybody have any questions on that section or anything we just covered? Looking at mine. Okay, we have a question.
Yes, Chris, there was a couple of questions that came in.
Great.
One was in regards to, it was mentioned the crash testing. As far as below 35 miles an hour, is there a scaled risk chart that shows any damage beyond 35 miles an hour? I don't know if that's something that can be answered now or if we need to table it to a later.
Yeah, let's table that one.
Okay. We'll table that one. We'll grab it at the end. And if not, we'll answer back.
Okay. Second question was, what is the tow procedure if you have a roadside breakdown? Is it necessary to disconnect the drive line, or can the wheels roll freely after power loss?
That you follow the I-shift now. So you can drop the prop shaft or take a drive axle.
Okay.
Everybody hear that?
Yeah.
It is the same procedure as the diesels.
Okay.
Just, drop the axle shafts out and it works.
Yeah, so basically you're just wanting to disengage the rear wheels from the transmission. So again, disconnect the drive shaft or remove the rear axles. Yep. What else, Chad?
One last question was major differences between a solid tire and inflated tire. Is one safer, or are there any other performance differences?
Say that again. Solid tire versus inflated tire.
Inflated tire.
Not sure what.
You just mentioned the solid tire. I in terminology, kind of new to the industry, not sure what that means. Is that any different than like a standard tire that I assume is just air pressure? Is it one solid piece of rubber, or what's the difference?
No, just asking for an explanation of the tire. I'm assuming the wide base tire there.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, this tire, I assume. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, this is a wide base tire. It's 445 50R 22.5. It's a single tire with the capacity of a dual tire setup. For the lift axle, and we'll get to this in a minute, but the axle does lift off the ground. This is designed to be lighter. It's a lighter because you have one rim versus two, and it lightens your weight up a little bit, and it provides less rolling resistance when it is down on the ground. So that's the crux of that. So, okay, good. Let's go around to the back of the truck. A few changes back here from the other products. So a little bit different mud flap hanger. It's the steel spring loaded. They're spring loaded so they can flex if needed. and tubular in design, 45-degree angle. The mud flaps were used on the diesel product. We've since moved to a non-branded, but they're anti-sail mud flaps as well. I got to mention the Eco 5200 backup alarm. Back here, that's the Amazon white noise backup alarm. All the cross members throughout the chassis are steel. The rear cross members taper for tractor application, similar to both products. And you notice we have a same Yoast air slide fifth wheel, 36-inch slide. We moved to a 36-inch slide to accommodate the ability to hook up to pup trailers and have clearance with the mud flap hangers. It's a 47-inch fifth wheel height, as I mentioned before. Again, 36-inch travel. The fifth wheel is centered between the two axles, and we have put, and we put a yellow marker. We're doing this on the CNG vehicles with 36-inch slides going forward. Put a yellow marker that aligns with the tag on the Yoast fifth wheel plate, so that, you know, that's kind of an optimal setting or center setting for the fifth wheel. And there's forward travel ahead of that, I believe about 10 inches. Fifth wheel bolts to steel angles, and the taillights were a little bit different as we went by. And you noticed we didn't put a pintle hook on this truck. We discussed it and determined that wasn't necessary. So they're integrated LED lights into the rear cross member. So any questions on that brief section there?
There was one question that came in regards to the tow procedure, just asking, is it in the owner's manual? And yes, it's in the owner's manual, and I believe there's also a sticker on the door.
Okay.
And the second question that came in was, can the driver step on the propulsion batteries near the deck plates or the catwalk?
I think
they're
we'll go up there.
Yep.
We'll go up there. Yep. Thanks. Yep. So we'll go. Well, I'll be up on the catwalk here in the next section, and we'll show you kind of an in-depth view of what you're dealing with. So I'm going to hand off to Chris Stadler, and he's going to walk you through the uniqueness of the 6x2 Volvo setup.
How about now? Okay. Okay, so this is the 6x2 adaptive loading with what we call it Volvo trucks. And as you can see here, basically it's designed to, when you're in a light mode, a light lift or lightweight mode in your truck, or you have a light payload on your truck, or you even bobtailing, as you can see here, that the axle is designed to lift up off the ground automatically. And we introduced this into production in 2016. And as you can see, what it's done, it's been designed here is basically to help with more efficiency on the vehicles. And with that in mind, what it means is well, by putting and this is a non-driven axle. If you see, when you go up on top of the carrier, you'll see actually an axle with a dip in it, a drop in it, like a horseshoe frame. It basically allows the drive shaft to come through to the drive axle, to connect to the drive axle. And that way you can have this as a non-driven axle. And by being a non-driven axle, it's basically creating that efficiency for the vehicle, where you're not having that resistance of two gear sets in a drive axle to combat with each other and create better efficiency. What we've seen improvements in terms of offering this on our diesel equivalent product is anywhere from 3 to 5% improvements in fuel economy. So with adding to the electric truck, it's also going to create efficiency when it comes to regenerative braking, when it comes to power maintenance on the vehicle. We've seen that also bringing efficiency on the electric truck by having this non-driven axle in the forward position. By having it in the forward position versus what you may have seen out on the field with a tag version of a 6x2, which is the drive axles in the forward part of the tandem, by having it in the rear part of the tandem, it allows for better traction support. So if you think about it, when you put a weight on this truck, wherever the fifth wheel is positioned, when you put your foot on the throttle, physics tells that truck the weight to go towards the rear end of the chassis. It's going to distribute it back to the rear end of the chassis. So all your weight is going to transfer back to this rear axle. And by having your drive axle in the rear position, that allows for that support of traction when you need it to get going for startability or gradability, or even when you're into some rough weather conditions. It gives that more weight distribution. The key thing here is having that tire padding on the ground, more footprint of the tire on the ground for better traction. So being allowed to have the weight more on that drive axle, that's going to give it better traction. And then by being able to lift it off the ground and operate in what we say a 4x2 configuration, it allows for better maneuverability. It also prevents any type of scuffing between the tires. And also it puts even more weight on this drive axle, giving better traction support in that regards. But also by lifting this axle when the weight distribution is correct, you're able to transfer some of that weight to the front axle, providing better steerability, better maneuverability for the driver as well. So that's the advantages we see and the efficiency improvements that we see with the 6x2 liftable axle. Now this axle itself is 20,000 pounds. And then with your drive axles here, which is the Meritor RS23 160 rating, it's a 23,000 pound rated axle with a 20,000 pound suspension. So you get the weight support of 40,000 pounds on the suspension when both axles are down. But when one axle's up, you get the 20,000 pound support here. This truck is designed for a 12,500 pound lift mode. So what that means is when the truck senses, and it has all these sensors going on with the transmission, with the electronic control suspension, when it senses a weight of 12,500 pounds or less on the drive axle or on your kingpin right here in the middle, it's going to lift this axle and run in this 4x2 configuration. So, and it's automatic. So the driver has no interaction with that lifting capabilities. They have no way to lift it on their own. It's all automatic, it's all programmed with the truck. So when that truck identifies that weight, it's going to lift it up and run it in a 4x2 configuration. And there's some controls that the driver will have to interact with, which we'll provide information on and instructions on, but also we'll demonstrate that when we get inside the cab. So Chris, I'll turn it back over to you. Is there any questions? I guess might be.
I think I saw a couple questions come in, Chad.
Yeah, there was just another question about will there be an additional deck plate on top of the battery packs for walking? So I think we were going to touch on that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another question about, is the axle able to be lifted manually, or is it strictly automatic? And I think Chris did touch on that as well.
Yep. Yeah, there is the ability, right? He'll go over, there's switches in the cab for controls of the axle, and he'll touch on that in a second. So it's 3 separate switches and different functionalities in there. Okay. So again, Chris mentioned it's a single Meritor rear axle, 23,000 pound capacity. The axle ratio is 4.89. And there is a differential lock in here. And what that does is it locks both axles simultaneously, so they'll both spin at the same time for better traction in the rear axle. And as Chris mentioned, I'd like to touch too and reiterate that most 6x2 configurations, our competition, is going to make the drive axle in the front. We've engineered a way to get the drive shaft to pass through, and somehow I'll show you that underneath the truck, maybe at the end of this, but the axle shaft passes through, and this makes the rear drive axle with the fulcrum and the weight, definitely better traction with this setup. Suspension is 20,000 pounds. There's rear shock absorbers, disc brakes to match the fronts in the pusher axle and the drive axle. Same brake lining material. Again, hubs and lubes to match the pusher and the rear axle. Michelin X-Line Energy Z tire in the back. And this is a low pro 22.5 tire. And this is a super single, as it's known, or wide base as it's come to be called after that. And it's a 445/50R 22.5 tire. So that's code for it's big. Rolling resistance means greenhouse gas and standard inflator cap. So let's go up onto the back of the truck, shall we? I got Alex Kazakov. I mentioned him earlier that he was instrumental in assisting in some of the development here. But with Amazon, we always a focus on safety, as with us. And with each pilot and each truck we've introduced, we're always making sure there's safe entry and egress onto the cab. With the width of the batteries, they're right at a certain width where to build steps into it, they would have exceeded the width capacity. So we made the steps that fold out. So simple pull here, step folds down. Simple pull here, this step folds down. So let me give you the dimensions of the step. So the first step, it's a 16.5-inch wide step. That step is the same width as the CNG access package. The first step height is 17 inches. Second step is 28, so that's plus 11. And then the top is 38 inches, which is plus 10. So let me set this down and I'll climb up onto the back of the truck. The second thing, as we work through this, was there wasn't initially, and mind you, these are early in production cycle trucks, so there wasn't a solution to come across the battery. And certainly we don't want anyone stepping on the battery. So there's a deck plate now for to come across and step and walk on the battery. Your CNG and diesel product have 40 inches of deck plate, because you have a wider area here to accommodate the batteries in the saddle mount configuration. We put 60-inch deck plates in the back. I think I accidentally hit the button. Where did you lose me? Okay. Cab rear suspension, very similar to what's in the CNG and diesel product. Air dryer underneath here. There is a span here, and again, because of to accommodate the batteries. So there's a pogo stick mid-length to support the hoses as they connect for the trailer connections. These are 15-foot hoses. They're mounted to the frame, and the pogo stick is mounted to the frame as well. From a lighting perspective, these are recessed into the back of the cab. They're LED, called fifth wheel lights, and then trailer lights that are inboard mounted on the cab side extenders, and they're LED as well. Have to mention the safety vision camera. So on this product, we mounted it lower than was on the original CNGs. And for the future CNGs, we found a lower mounting position as well. And it's a safety vision camera. It's consistent with what we've been using on the CNG product. So I'm gonna go ahead and climb down. Let me set my stuff down. And real quick, just got a couple more items in this section, and we'll pause for questions. One thing to be sure of, so when you come down, have your operators go ahead and simply pull this button and lock the steps back in for transport or for operation. steel air tanks underneath to support the air for the braking system and the accessory features inside the seats and whatnot. And there's drain valves on each air tank. Actually, I think you caught some of this. So the compressor, John, you caught that earlier. Are there any questions?
We need to talk about the compressor.
You do? Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, as Chris mentioned, we have the air compressor on the vehicle. Because we do have a pneumatically lifted lift axle, we have an air ride cab and an air ride suspension. We still need air pressure. And one of the biggest differences between VNR electric and one of your diesel or natural gas products will be the fact we can't drive it off an engine. So with this, we're driving a 600 volt air compressor here for the air compressor, for the air pressure. So really, what's nice about it is it's mounted exterior, easy to get to, because we do have a filter on this compressor as well as oil that has to be changed every year. So with that, it's right under this cover. We also have a charge receptacle nearby the air compressor. So this is your charge receptacle. When you release it, it opens up, and this is where you actually plug your charger in. So whatever your charger may be, we can handle up to 150 kilowatts of charging. For this setup with the 264 total capacity on the batteries, we can go from basically 20 to 70% capacity in about 70 minutes. So it charges relatively fast at that rate. But basically, you just plug it in here. When you plug it in, the charger itself will have to communicate with the truck charging computer. As they're communicating when you plug it in, you'll see a yellow light flashing. Now, this material has been supplied to you, so you can reference that material as far as what the lights mean. But really, once you plug it in and it starts charging, you will have a green light blinking right here in the center. And that simply means that the units are connected and they are charging. If you do have a driver that wants to sit in the truck and watch it as it charges, there is a charge indicator inside the truck. It's very similar to one on your phone. You'll see a little battery pop up and you'll see a lightning bolt next to it that shows the system is charging. So with that, as it's charging, if for some reason you have to stop the charge immediately, we have a button here that you can press. When you press that button, it will release the lock on the charging unit and you can pull the handle out. So this is the charging unit, easy to get to. Right next to it, we have what we call a chassis switch. This is a 24 volt interrupt circuit. So for maintenance purposes, if you ever need to disconnect the traction voltage, the 600 volt voltage, you really just flip the switch down or up, excuse me. When the switch goes up like this, the system is off. But the only time the switch should be up is when we are working on the system, or if there's another, emergency situation we have to tend to. Other than that, it should be down at all times. So that's what we call the chassis switch.
Thanks, John. Any questions? Yeah, I knew this section's got to drive a couple. There's a lot of good stuff here.
So one additional question came in regards to the lift axle. Would there be any difference in turning radius with the axle in lift mode or in down mode?
No, it doesn't change the turning radius. Yep.
Second question was, what is the max input power accepted by the main propulsion batteries?
From a charging, 150. Yep. Yeah, the charging capacity of the max capacity of the charger is 150 kilowatts. Yep.
And the two-part question then, as far as the steps.
Yep.
Do the steps auto fold out or do they need to be hand folded down? And I think you already demonstrated those. How?
Yeah. And I'll do it again. Real easy. Yep.
And is there any potential for the step handle that you're pulling out to stick? And is there a method, if they cannot be pulled out, to safely climb on the back of the cab?
So I think if I say no, I don't have to answer part two, right? Yes. No. It's I mean, potential, is a broad word, but yeah, no, it's moves pretty freely. I mean, I would, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, make sure it's maybe a lubrication point, but it's pretty easy to do. I mean, I'm not, you know, just 2 fingers. Feels about like the little more than the resistance of a pinball machine. One more question or another question.
In regards to the airlines and electrical cables, can you show how they're stowed when they're not in use?
Yeah. Yeah, they're really in droop position now. They'll stow and sit very similar. There's a zip tie there, a zip tie there, and here.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So I'd have to cut all the zip ties and they'd be there. Yeah.
Here, they're stowed right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so there's where your electrical cable plugs in. This would typically be an apparatus mounted lower on the frame, but because of the different mounting position on the battery electric vehicle, they're attached to the pogo stick, and your trailer and service valve or air brake mounts here, and then your electrical line mounts in this cup.
You want to show them how?
Sure.
Go to the trailer.
Any other questions? Sure.
There's been several questions come in regards to supporting someone walking on top of the batteries. So is it possible to show that that's not an option, and then that also that there's a warning decal there?
There's 2. There's actually a no step and an electrical marker here. And same on the other side, there's no step on the other side. Same decals. Yeah, they don't want to step on the batteries. And given that this is a new product, and there's certainly a few different procedural things that will have to be stressed, but that is one of them.
Chris, just to follow up on that, are those grates heavy, like on the catwalk? Because I'm just thinking from a safety perspective, it's very difficult for us to train personnel, third-party drivers, just to stay right on the grate only. I'm just thinking from a safety perspective, it might be good to just cover the battery and have it easily accessible for maintenance as needed. I just don't know if that adds a lot of weight if we were just to put grates across the top. I don't know, Alex Kazakov, if that was discussed before. I just see it as a large, slick area that could be dangerous.
Yeah, I think there, you know, part of this is driver training, you know, and to say, you know, it's a no step zone. And part of this, these are project trucks, and you know, there's structural needs under here, and how this was mounted, you know, it has to be approved by engineering and things of that nature. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. We good? One more? Okay.
One additional question in regards to the switch next to the charging port, about the sturdiness and what would happen if someone accidentally hit it with their foot, driver coming in or out of the cab.
Yeah, best I could answer that. It's inboard about 2.5 inches. Let's see. It's in a position where it'd be difficult to kick. I guess it could happen, but
Yeah. If you did kick it, since the cover is down, the switch would not change positions, which is good.
Okay.
we good?
One last question about the deck plate, as far as the size of the walking area in comparison to a CNG or diesel product.
I believe it's wider.
Yeah.
That's 20 inch.
Yeah, it's. So, well, actually, excuse me. it's a different entry area on a CNG product. You don't have the batteries here, and the steps are mounted to frame. You walk up the steps, and then you're on the deck plate on the back. So it's a different entry egress. And on the diesel, same as well. It's mounted to the frame of the fuel tanks. Yep.
Yeah, and I think drivers are going to spend very little time back there. Most of them are going to do it from the ground, reachable. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, good. So moving through the truck, just a few cab exterior features. Cab side fairings. The extenders aren't on the CNG product. They are on the diesel. So we're able to add them here. They're not on the CNG product because it interferes with the door openings on the fuel cabinet. Mentioned the black aerodynamic mirrors before, same as on the CNG and diesel product. They're power mirrors, and they're heated, which again, as I mentioned, heats the front mirrors. One addition for this product was there's lighted chevrons here in the convex mirror that correspond to your turn signal. So you turn signal on to the left, it's going to illuminate to the left. Turn signal to the right, it's going to illuminate to the right. The antennas are a little bit shorter. 24-inch on both sides, radio and CB, one on each side. A short section. I probably didn't generate any questions, maybe. Let's look inside the cab. So as with the color of the outside, there's distinctive accents inside the cab, and I'll try to point out as many as I can as we go. You may be able to see the green accent here, and green is the color associated with the lights project. There's a puddle lamp to illuminate for safety as you get in the truck. Got a little bit of an upgraded interior in here, and I'll point some of that out as we go. There's a 5-pound fire extinguisher mounted beside the seat, and there's a triangle kit in the back. You put this in here so I can. Volvo mounts their grab handles inboard. Maybe we could show the seat and then I can talk about it. So see how good you can get it here. Want me to. So it's a very distinctive seat. VNR electric with green accents. It's a leather covering material with a cloth interior, and we'll talk about some of the advanced features of the seat as well. A very good looking seat. Again, definitely nice upgrade for this product. So I'll talk about the seat in a second, but it's a leather wrapped steering wheel as well, and it has green accents. And can't talk about Volvo without talking about the airbag in the center of the steering wheel. Volvo is the only North American manufacturer to put a driver's side airbag standard. The steering column is also energy absorbing. So in the event of an accident, it's going to crush to absorb energy. Energy absorbent kick panels to either side of the steering wheel to protect the driver in an accident as well. Another unique feature about this steering wheel, it's got a six position adjustable availability. So if you push the pedal all the way to the ground, it adjusts just like your diesel and CNG steering wheels. Okay. So let's get it comfortable where we can have a good view of the instrument panel for what comes later. But if you push it in just about a quarter of the way, this is called the neck tilt. It allows you to further adjust the steering wheel to an exact position for the driver comfort. Self-canceling turn signal switch. The pre-trip assistant button is here. And same as on the diesel and CNG product. Push the button, it'll illuminate the lights all the way around the truck to assist the driver to do their pre-trip. The VATA volume control is driver adjustable. Volume level adjustable. Time gap 3. It's a higher level knit fabric for the interior. And of course, I mentioned the green accents. Rubber carpeted floor inserts can be replaced as they wear. Let's talk about the seat a little bit. And the driver and passenger seats match. You have dual armrests for each. There is a memory system. So it's memory and quick release. So it's in the quick release position. When this button is down, it lowers the seat to enable you to get in and out of the truck easier. When you flip it up, it's going to go ahead and return to the last position it was in before you got out. It also has a shock absorber for dampening as you go down the road. So, you know, it kind of lessens the bounce and for more comfort. It's a dual lumbar seat. So lower and upper lumbar chamber, and it's got a back cycler feature, which will alternate those lumbar chambers for driver comfort. Also, they're heated and ventilated, so they have air conditioning and air that will blow through, and they can be heated in colder weather. Seat belts, distinctive lime green. They're orange on the other product. We have two choices of colored seat belts for identification going down the road, and orange and green. We're using green to match the accent of the VNRe. So, Rob, you want to maybe start over here, talk about some of the dash switches? So, very similar in scope. Chris will talk about some of the in the switch panel, some of the different buttons in a minute, but very similar down here. Your smart drive keypad is down here, mounted in the same position as the diesel and CNG. Electronic air conditioning controls here. Bluetooth, AM, FM, MP3 radio. Chris will talk about the switch panel, but pretty simple, you know, with the transmission, drive, reverse, and neutral buttons are here. Marker interrupter switch on the steering wheel. Stayed with power locks as we put on the CNG product. Has remotes, two remotes, the same on the CNG product. There's two lights vehicles you'll be getting, and they're both keyed alike. You get 4 keys per unit. It has the parking brake alarm if the door is open and the parking brake is not set. The alarm will sound to alert the driver. And overhead storage is netted. Talk about some of the upfit items. While I'm up here, here's the smart drive event recorder, your front camera and your rear camera. The backup camera monitor is here. The RAM mount installed by Fontaine here, same position as the diesel and the CNG, and the power cable, where your Zergo device or your Zergo interface device will mount here. Zergo's mounted underneath the dash. The prep is RP1226 to the DL1 connection, and an additional RP1226 for DL5. We put the window film in the back to alleviate the chances of rocks damaging the windshield. And we put an Eco brand, the same brand as the backup alarm, sound generator. That's going to create a noise for a truck. You know, battery electric vehicles are quiet. It's going to create a noise to alert anybody around the truck that it's in motion and moving. It's going to make a progressively rising noise up to about 20 miles an hour, and then it shuts off. I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Chris and kind of talk about some of the dash panel and the switches. And in here will be the switches that are associated with the lift axle. And we have a question.
In regards to the door, the driver's door there, can the handle, can that also be used where your left hand is? Can that also be used as a handle, or is it just the bar that's mounted on the cab itself? I think this is in regards to maintaining the 3 points of contact entering and exiting.
Yeah, and you saw I almost did a no-no. I stepped out face forward. But I think the recommendation is to use the interior handles. They're mounted on the interior for a reason. It keeps them, you know, away from wet or snow or ice or anything, and you know, so that they don't get slick. You know, yeah, with the inboard mounted handles, they're pretty accessible. I think it could be used, but you know, again, the recommendation would be to grab the interior mounted handles. Yes.
And Chris, one additional question in regards to the noise generator is there a noise emitted when the vehicle is energized but not moving? And the
Yes.
answer to that is yes.
Yeah. So there is a noise, and again, it will rise in loudness, decibel levels as the truck rises in speed. Okay.
Should I try? Is my phone working now?
You're good.
You're good.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. So I'll get up here in the cab and show some of the switches and also demonstrate how to operate the vehicle, how to turn it on. I'll let Rob get situated here. Can you see the switch bank real good? Okay. So on this switch bank, I mean, Chris covered a lot of the other stuff inside the cab, so I'm just really going to focus on the switch bank here. As he mentioned, the gear selection for the VNR electric is situated in this switch bank, which you have your drive, your reverse, and neutral here, located here. But you also, if you see to the right of those two switches, is 3 more switches. Those 3 switches right there pertain to the adaptive loading system. And you've got 3 switches. What we call the first switch to the left is what we call our traction mode switch, which I'll explain that a little bit as we go down. But I first want to start off with what we call our ECS switch, which stands for electronically controlled suspension. This is a lock switch for the vehicle, so the driver doesn't have a chance to accidentally hit it and unlock it. But what that does is when it's in the upward position, as you see it here now, it's for normal driving. So when the driver's going down the road, they're going to keep it in this upward position, keep it locked, and that will be set. It'll set the suspension height for the load that they're carrying and properly position the chassis where it needs to be when they're going down the road. However, when they're going into, let's say, docking or unhooking and dropping trailers, they would take this switch and push it down in a downward position by unlocking it. So they have to kind of push this little tab up a little bit higher to unlock it and push it down. And when they push it down, they'll actually get a notification in the driver information display showing that it has gone from automatic mode to manual mode. And when they do that, this allows the driver to raise and lower the suspension height. And what that means is, so let's say if as you saw this truck today, it's a bobtailed at this point in position, but when they're going to hook up their trailers for the day, just like you do in your 6x4 today, they would release the air suspension, but it's usually in the 6x4, it's one switch, whereas in the 6x2, it'll be these 2 switches. So when they go and hook up their trailers, they would unlock it, put it in what we call manual mode. They'll be notified in the driver information display that it's going to be in manual mode. They'll take this switch and put it in the next switch next to it is called our bogey switch. They'll take that switch and put it in the downward position. This will lower the air suspension, so it allows the driver to back up underneath the trailer without having interference with the fifth wheel and the kingpin in the trailer. So they're not worried about hitting the trailer. So once they back up underneath the trailer, then they will basically put it back up in a normal position. Once they get the fifth wheel plate right underneath the apron of the trailer, they can raise it back up, and that way it makes it easier for them to slide into the kingpin. And then once they get into the kingpin and they're locked and secure, they can actually raise the ride height, and this will allow the trailer to almost raise off the ground a little bit, almost up to 2 inches, and that can actually help the driver crank up the landing gear once they're ready to move out and pick up their payload. Then once they do that, then they basically take this ECS switch, put it back in the upwards position, and that will return the tractor back to its normal suspension height. And this switch on the right, the bogey switch, will go into a dead position. Now, the switch to the left here is what we call the traction mode switch. This switch will be used to help the driver be proactive. So when they're hooking up and dropping the trailer, they can actually push the axle down, and that'll give it what we call a 50-50 pressure on both axles to support any type of payload additions to their trailer. If they're going down the road and they need some additional traction support, they can actually put this is a 3-toggle switch. They can put the switch in the upward position, and that will actually add a little bit more pressure to the drive axle, giving them extra traction support if they're encountering some bad weather conditions or they need that additional startability help. So those are the three switches, and we will provide more instructions on the adaptive loading, and of course be willing to answer any additional questions you might have. The upper switches here in the switch bank, you have your diff lock switch. So in a 6x2, just like your 6x4s, you have diff lock capabilities. You can unlock that as well to get into a diff lock position, and that will support the driver for traction support. They also have their traction control switch that actually can be deactivated if they need to. The switch next to that is your fifth wheel switch that slides the fifth wheel back and forth there, and it's a lock switch as well. And then the final switch to the right there is your hill start assist, which you can the driver can deactivate there. So really, these switches are about interacting with the truck while it's driving down the road. So that gives you an idea of what those switch banks are about and how the driver can do that on a daily basis. So now I'm going to take you through what the driver will experience when they are turning on the vehicle. So if you come back over here to the ignition switch, you can see that it's in the same position as your diesel or your CNG product today. And to activate or to turn on the vehicle for electric vehicles, and I'll get my colleague to shut the hood, is they'll take it to the middle position, which is your run position. When you do that, you have to allow the system to activate itself or get prepared for electric, to be prepared for startability. And as you can see, it sweeps through all the gauges to make sure they're working properly, and it's ready to turn on. And just like in your diesel or today or your CNG today, what you would do is just do a one click over to start the truck. And when you start the truck, you'll see all of a sudden to your left is the power meter gauge. Thank you for pointing that out. It'll come on and it'll take the needle to the 0 position. And it'll also just below, right around the base of that gauge, meter there, you see a green truck with 2 arrows going left and right. And that's showing that the truck is now on. So as you can see in the instrument cluster, there's some slight changes compared to your diesel product or your CNG product. But this is what's going to be shown in all of our electric trucks when it comes to the instrument cluster. You also can see above the power meter is the charge level. So just like similar like the diesel or the CNG, you can see where your status is from a charge standpoint. And as you can see here, we're 50% state of charge left in the batteries. So it gives you a gauge perception of showing a 50% or 50 halfway point of the gauge meter. Down below on the left-hand side is your air pressure, your transmission, and then you also, if you go back over to the right-hand side, you got your speedometer as well, just like you do in your current product today. And you also have your pressure for your air tanks as well, your primary air tank and your secondary air tank. When it comes to the DID here as well, you can see the driver will have all the same controls that they have today, where they can control everything from the steering wheel, all your gauges when it comes to setting your cruise control, doing your blinkers, doing your phone, your audio, everything like that. Just like today, they also have a way to toggle through the different settings of the vehicle. The one thing that they're going to really focus on when they're driving these trucks is their battery status. And in the electric vehicle, what's different than what you don't see is different from what you see in the diesel today is you'll have a screen called battery status, which gives the state of charge of the truck itself. And that, as you can see in this truck today, we have 52% left of state of charge. So that gives the driver some good indication of where they are from a charge status point as well. But they can also scroll into what we call trip meters, so they can see on their current trip, what their average speed is, what's their charge to empty, so to speak. So if based on the current conditions today, they have approximately maybe 48 miles before they have to recharge the batteries. And then below that, you can see what type of usage they're using so they're averaging 2.0 kilowatt hours per mile of charge. And of course that again gives them also the amount of charge left in there. It's 90 kilowatt hours left of charge in their batteries as well in comparison to the miles left. Another area that they can see is the energy economy. Again, give them another perception of how well this truck is performing with the state of charge, because this will all incorporate with what their payload they're carrying, where they're traveling. Also, it'll give them indication of when they're doing the regenerative braking, how well this truck is performing. And speaking of regenerative braking, just like in the diesel trucks today, or the CNG truck, or no, the diesel truck today, we have what we call regenerative braking stock here for the vehicles. So you have various positions. You have an off position that shows up in the DID, which is the top level of the stock. As you go down to the next level, that's the A position. That's where we like for the driver to keep it in at all times when they're driving the vehicle. This will help with some regenerative braking as the truck's moving down the vehicle. But the driver can also put it in various positions where 1, 2, and 3 levels. And at those different levels, there's different types of braking activity. 30% braking at level 1, 66% braking at level 2, and 100% braking at level 3. So this will actually give them enough braking capabilities to come to almost to a complete stop with the vehicle, and also help with regenerative braking. And then one more screen I want to share with you as well as I mentioned before, scroll to it here. You can see this is something pertaining to the 6x2 in itself. You can see it's showing that the truck is in automatic position, meaning normal driving mode. You can see where the heights bars are on the right-hand side of the screen, showing that the suspension is at normal rod height. And then it also gives an indication to the driver what type of load is on their drive axle, and even the lift axle if the lift axle is down and payload is acquired on those axles. So it gives them an idea of how much pressure pressure is on those axles, which they can easily convert to how much weight they have on those axles. And of course, you can set your home screen to, the driver can set their home screen, which can show them details about what's going on with the vehicle. So from there, I'll hand it back over to Chris.
I know we generated some questions there.
Yeah, several questions in regards to the cab interior.
That's good.
One was, is it possible to revisit when a driver should use the 6x2 suspension on the far right? And when will these switches be covered in the owner's manual?
Yeah, we will get you further information on the adaptive load system 6x2 and things of that nature. We'll get you some solid stuff you can distribute and use it in your driver orientation. But the first question was, I think same question was information. The first question was, when do you use the far right 6x2 switch? Was that right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
The bogey switch, which is next to the ECS switch, that will be used when you're unhooking and dropping your trailers. So you would take the ECS switch, like I said, and put it in manual position, and then from there, that bogey switch to the right of that switch is active, and that allows the driver to raise and lower the rod height to unhook and drop trailers. It can also be used in case there's a failure to adjust the suspension height to get them to a service shop without having to be towed to a service shop.
Yes. Several additional questions. One was,
Mm-hmm.
Does the tractor have the standard park brake alarm on it? And is there any delay, or is it immediately activated?
It's the same. I believe it's 2 seconds, and yes, it does. It's the same park brake alarm as the CNG diesel. Yep.
Okay. And another question was, how long will the hill start function hold the truck?
3 seconds.
3 seconds. Yep.
Incline or decline. Release the brake. You have 3 seconds to press the throttle, or throttle will deactivate as well.
An additional question is, does the truck creep slightly in drive or reverse gear mode?
Creep. Unintended movement.
I think the intention is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It requires input for it to move. Yeah, accelerator input. So.
Yeah, if you want to feather the throttle, you can go as slow as you want. It's very reactive to the pedal. So it's one of the best features of the truck.
And one last question was in reference, actually this is a two-part question. The piece of plastic that was covered on top of the dashboard, And I think that was in reference to the heads-up display that flashes up on the windshield in the event of a VADA or a Volvo Active Driver Assist alert.
Yep.
And then the second part of that question is, can the regenerative braking level be locked, making it non-adjustable?
So that's probably in relation to the stock.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. No, the stock is selectable, driver selectable.
Yeah, you can't lock it, but we do suggest you drive in position A because that will maximize your range.
That stock's very similar to the stock in the diesel product. Any other, Chad?
One last question is, what is the estimated mileage on a 100% charge?
80 to 110.
Yeah, for this truck, it would be in the 80 to 100 range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And that's all.
One second. Hold on one second. Y'all gonna raise truck? Gonna raise truck? We'll go. So I'm looking at the teleprompter. It says insert joke about raising truck here. We got this was a great surprise at the last one, not as much a surprise, but at the end of the day, we appreciate the partnership. We want to raise your expectations and raise the truck to new heights. So, but in actuality, it is fun to walk under the truck and see some componentry that we weren't able to see from the top. There's a few components underneath that we want to point out and give you a different view of the truck from the bottom side. So let's go ahead and walk to the back. You should be able to see the similarities between the standard conventional diesel or a CNG product. We'll be able to look at the 6x2 axle, the horseshoe dip in the forward axle or the pusher axle that allows the drive shaft to pass through. The drivetrain that Brett had on the model earlier will be visible from under here. All right. So Rob, you let me know. So you see this here. So from here forward, it's pretty similar to your current trucks today in CNG and diesel. You have a rear pumpkin, if you will, intermediate cross member, airbags, air suspension. But here's the difference. This isn't an interaxle shaft and there's not a forward drive here. So here's the dip in the rear axle that allows the drive shaft to pass through coming from the yoke here. Okay, so here's your drive. And the pusher axle is supported by airbags as well. So it's got an airbag suspension. And again, I don't know if you can see, but there's disc brakes all the way around in the 4 positions as well. Moving up here, we start to get into, and from the bottom, really, it's the first time I'm seeing it as well. Kind of has the appearance of an I-shift with, it is an I-shift, but a diesel I-shift with the similarities in appearance and style at the bottom. A little bit smaller, right? But it is a 2-speed transmission. And now, Brett, motors or the drive systems?
Yes, so you got the 2 electric motors right in front of the transmissions that are coupled to the front of it, providing the 340 kilowatts of power for propulsion.
Cool stuff. So moving up here, a little protection for the apparatus. Air tanks, again, very similar, just a little bit less capacity, not as much air volume is needed on a diesel or CNG. Again, moving, where are we at now, Brett?
Yeah, so you're here underneath the multi-power box that's in the engine bay. So what you'll see is at the bottom would be like for example, the electric motor drives. So that provides the power to the motor, to the AC motors. And then above it will be the junction boxes. You get an idea of the high voltage, the orange lines that run throughout that provide the back and forth between the batteries and the junction box and the charge switching unit.
So moving up here, front leaf springs, front axle, we're back into kind of what you might recognize, from a CNG or diesel product. And as Brett mentioned, orange is the high voltage lines. So those are the stay away. And it's marked with stickers and things where there are no touch points. So moving back out, you can see the aerodynamic lip of the front bumper. And I'll turn it over to Scott Whitty, and that's the end of the program. Now we'll have a Q&A after Scott's done as well, but I'll let Scott wrap up.
Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me? Good. All right. So thank you. This is a lot of work goes into one of these, but appreciate everybody spending some time and going through this. This is actually very exciting. So as Chris said, I'm Scott Whitty. I'm the Vice President of National Accounts for Volvo Trucks here in North America. I think I've met most of you before, but many new faces probably this time as well. I'll be very brief. This is very exciting. This is just another step towards decarbonization, zero emissions, and ultimately a sustainable future. I think as you've seen, Volvo Trucks is a true global leader in sustainable commercial transportation. And with this battery electric truck is just another step towards really the initial step in our electromobility journey here in North America. So with that said, I know this is a project truck, part of a subsidized program, but we have taken the step of commercializing this truck as well. And we do expect to accelerate the adoption of battery electric vehicles together with partners like Amazon. So with that, we're very excited. I want to say thank you to everybody who spent the time. We do look forward to getting these trucks on the road. We do look forward to you putting miles on them. We do look forward to the feedback and everything that we're going to learn along the way. So with that said, I'll hand it back over to Chris for any remaining questions and as a wrap up. But thank you very much.
Okay, I think we have one question at this point, and if there's any others, we're still ahead on time.
And
So,
Chris, if you could but the question is probably best for John or Brett, just to talk a little bit more about mileage expectations and how vehicle operation or road speed can affect that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Brett. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, so in general, obviously the topography, the loading, and the cycle that's performed will impact the energy usage. If you look at, say, for example, what we're doing currently in Southern California, running around 50 to 60,000 pound type distribution, we're seeing anywhere from 1.6 to 2.0 kilowatt hours per mile. So that starts to frame out your range and range expectations. And obviously one of the impacts to that would be top speed. If you drive at 50 miles an hour and above, that consumes energy. Whereas if you're in a city, a smaller average road speed, let's say, for example, 30 miles an hour, that would indicate a lot more stop and go, and that would allow the ability to recoup some of that energy through regenerative braking. But certainly the duty cycle, the top speed and average speed would be key characteristics to understanding the range potential for an electric vehicle.
thanks, Brett. How are we doing on questions, Chad? We good?
No more questions at this point.
Did we have any that we had one we need to circle back to, I thought, or are we good there? It was no? Okay.
No.
Okay, well, unless any come in, or again, we'll continue to supplement information on the product. We'll get you some information, more information on the adaptive load. And oh, okay, sure.
One additional question as far as key numbers for speed numbers, top speed recommendations and such.
Yeah, so the top speed is set at 58.
Yeah, so from the factory, the truck will be set to 58. We've got a 4.89 rear axle ratio in it, so it is capable of 65 miles an hour. Of course, you know, again, we recommend you don't want to drive too fast to consume energy, because you obviously want to fulfill your mission and your transport cycle. So just be mindful of your top speeds.
And there's a balance, and it is in California, which is a 55 mile an hour state for Class 8 vehicles, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so, and stays in that area, so it's consistent with what the speed limits are in California for Class 8. Okay, we're good. Look, thank you, everybody. We're excited to be a part of the next phase with Amazon. We're excited to get these trucks in operation. We'll ship them this week and have them there next week, and we'll do final things at the dealer, clean them up, and get them ready for handoff. So again, thank everybody for your time. I know went about an hour and 40 minutes, so thank you very much. We appreciate it, and have a good day.
Thank you, Chris.